During World War II, the Japanese captured and occupied most of Southeast Asia on the little-known Indonesia island of Ambon, 650 miles north of Australia. The Japanese established a prisoner of war camp. 1,100 Australian soldiers were captured in Ambon in February 1942. When the Japanese surrendered in September 1945, fewer than 300 were left alive. 91 Japanese officers were later charged with war crimes. The movie opens up with Japanese soldiers being forced to dig up mass graves where they have killed and buried Australian soldiers. Over 300 bodies of Australian soldiers were found, some bounded and others beheaded. After the evacuation, Japanese Vice Admiral Takahashi, Captain Hikeuchi, and other Japanese soldiers were charged with deliberate ill-treatment and murder of prisoners of war. Vice Admiral Baron Takashi was brought in from Japan to answer his charges as the commander-in-chief of the Japanese force. The lead prosecutor of the Japanese soldiers was Captain Cooper. During the trial, Vice Admiral Takahashi and all other soldiers pled not guilty to all charges. When asked about the mass grave of about 300 Australian soldiers, he claimed to know nothing about this because he was not present during the time of executions and has kept Captain Hishiguchi in charge. Captain Hishiguchi also claimed no knowledge of the executions, with no one alive to give testimonies. Vice Admiral Takahashi was acquitted of all charges, while Hishiguchi and other soldiers were still being charged. One of the ill-treated, injured Australian soldiers who was sick private, Jimmy Felton, gave a testimony of the very gruesome and cruel way the Japanese treated the soldiers. He went ahead to show Captain Cooper the spot which some Australian soldiers were beheaded, including narrating how his brother and other Australian soldiers were tortured and executed by Lieutenant Tanaka, who was given order by Captain Hishiguchi. The movie shows us a throwback of Jimmy Felton ordeals. This gives us glimpses of how the Australian soldiers were treated by the Japanese, how the soldiers were beaten daily, and how Private Jimmy Felton escaped being killed, and how he saw and followed the truck that took his brother Eddie Felton and 3 other Australian soldiers to the place of execution where they were rated and beheaded by Lieutenant Tanaka. Major Cooper asked Jimmy Felton to identify his brother and other soldiers from some pictures, which he did after his testimony. Captain Hishiguchi and Lieutenant Tanaka were charged with murder. When called to testify, Lieutenant Tanaka pled not guilty to the charges. While admitting to beheading the Australian soldiers, he claimed he was following orders from Captain Hishiguchi, who told him that the soldiers are to be executed for committing the war crime of bombing innocent civilians. He claimed Captain Hishiguchi bestowed upon him the honor of executing the soldiers, as soldiers could only be executed by soldiers of equal rank, after confirming the Australians had been tried by Japanese court. After his statement, which implicated Captain Hishiguchi, the captain screamed and called him a traitor, stating there is no record of him giving the orders. After this argument, the court was adjourned. Later that evening, Lieutenant Tanaka was seen talking to Captain Cooper about the events of the day when a soldier came to inform the captain that Captain Hishiguchi has committed suicide. The soldiers ran to the captain's cell and found that he has committed suicide by stabbing himself. This left all the Japanese soldiers confused and scared. Captain Cooper then asked the soldiers to cover him up. The next day at court, Lieutenant Tanaka continues to plead not guilty to the charges, as he was only following the commands of his superior. When asked if at the time he was carrying out the executions he knew he was committing a crime, he denied knowing it was a crime and was only carrying out justice. Captain Cooper argues that the lieutenant was aware he was committing a crime when carrying out the executions, but pled with the court to have mercy, as the lieutenant was only a pawn for his superiors. The same superiors that the tribunal have cleared of all charges after all statements. The tribunal found Lieutenant Tanaka guilty, as it is the duty of the defendant to confirm that a legal court-martial has convened and a legal court order issued and sentenced to death by firing squad. After the judgment was given, Lieutenant Tanaka was seen taken to a place of execution where he was killed by the firing squad. Before the execution, Lieutenant Tanaka asked not to be blindfolded, as he claimed he was not afraid of death. This request was denied, as the executioner claimed it's a law for all convicts to be blindfolded before execution.